Dear Diary, today I took the first step in becoming an ADHD coach. I can't actually quite believe it. I want to learn, grow, and build something extraordinary. I think this journey will be the Indigo Diaries. Dear Diary, welcome world to the Indigo Diaries, and welcome to our exciting new series, Series 2, The World Through a Trainee's Coach's Eyes. And that coaching training is me, Tasha Hickling. The Indigo Diaries is a podcast for those who want to learn about ADHD through others' experiences. So welcome back, everyone. And this week is celebration week because I officially, finally, hands on my heart, finished the next part of my course. And I'm so beyond happy. And now I can finally move on to the bit I've been waiting for almost a year, the coaching part. And I'm just so happy. I've been, it's not in my DNA to be patient, but I've been studying since September now with my pre-courses and then this course, and I'm finally ready. A lot of people on my other course they're qualified now, and it's amazing to see that they're qualified, but it's kind of like, oh, come on, I've took the long road to get there, but it's going to be worth it in the end when I do this and then move on to my my elective course that I want to do. And it's just really exciting to know that I finally did it and I got there, and we'll talk a bit about celebrations in the next episode, but it's really nice to stop and really think about the celebration. And sometimes I feel like that's really lost. We don't celebrate the things that we do right. It might not be the things that everybody else sees as doing things to celebrate, but it's celebrating what's a celebration for yourself. And I had a little bit of a reward over the weekend, and I'm really happy that I did that, and I reflected. And now I'm ready. I'm itching to go. I've had a week off this week of my course, and I'm itching to go on Monday. I'm so excited to start this part. And in a few months later, I'll be fully qualified and ready to go. So it's very exciting. And yeah, things are going well. So to end kind of this part of this series, we're going to be talking about culture and setting goals. So I'm going to jump right in and talk about culture. This is a big, huge part of that I want my coaching to be, is culture. And I'll explain a bit more when we go into later in the series, when I start really to talk about myself as a coach. But this let's talk about kind of the general, what culture is, and go in there. I just want to say before I start that I'm going to try and keep away from, this is basically based on my own experience, because I think that this is very hard and quite a loaded topic. And I don't want to offend anybody or anybody's things. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to kind of give you some facts, give you some things of how ADHD and culture and in my own experiences. So what is culture? Culture is a pattern of ideas, customs and behaviors shared by society or people. And that's basically what it is a pattern of things that is shared by a group of people or a society. And I think that, what influences culture? What does culture influence in ourselves? And it can influence our behaviors, our human relations, our beliefs, our time, and our communication. And it can affect quite a lot of things. And I don't think we really realize how much culture has a huge impact on our lives from wherever we're from. And from wherever we're from, whatever we've been exposed to, wherever we live, whatever we believe is okay, because that's our own culture. But if it's stopping us from, moving forward with our ADHD or our growth, that's when it becomes a real hard topic. And I really like this. I've posted it below. It's called A Hidden and Obvious Iceberg by Gert Jan Hosted. And it's about the visible and invisible factors of culture and how it affects us. So obviously when you have an iceberg, you have above the water and below the water. So I call it below the surface, above the surface. And we've talked about this before with ADHD, but when it comes to culture, so above the surface is things like language, clothing, food, things that are on the outside, things that people have, it's easy, it's visible. Then the things underneath, the conversational style, the greetings, the humor, the relationships, I could go on and on and on. How people behave, how people see other things, beliefs, stronger beliefs, and it's, and it's being able to see what is visible, but what's also invisible, what's below the surface, because they're the things that really, language, clothing, food are huge impacts of our lives. But things like conversational style, greetings, and human relationships are much more internally, taken in, and that they're the things that are really going to affect us. And you say, how does this link to ADHD? And culture is a role, and the structure and expectations in how ADHD is understood. And it plays a huge role in how ADHD is understood in our own culture, how people are treated, how an individual, and then how that individual kind of functions in that environment within that culture. And it has a big part in getting treatment, and we'll go on and talk about that in a minute. But it plays a huge role in our lives, especially when we're neurodivergent. And we've talked about this before about, the stigmatizing the world of what people cannot see. And it's huge when you're in a culture that might not fully understand it, and it could be misunderstood, and individuals could be treated unfairly for, having an ADHD brain. And that's when I think ADHD and culture kind of come head to head. And, statistics show that 8% of the world have ADHD, diagnosed, not near enough that, but undiagnosed ADHD. And it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, ADHD shows up in every country and everything. It's just whether it's known or not. And basically some of the ADHD, culture impacts is, neurodiversity still is, not had that much progress. We're making progress. I'm not going to go into things about politics, and I'm not going to do that. But, things that are more visible when we talk about that iceberg, the more visible things, the language, the clothing, the food, things like that are more noticeable because we can see them. We can believe them. We see what we can believe. And neurodiversity, a lot of people cannot see it. So it is even harder to basically believe it. And, there is so much diversity in how we think, learn, interact with the world. And it's still yet really, really not acknowledged, not seen as a thing in a lot of places. And that's not just in countries, that could be in households. Culture comes in many different systems. In one person's life, they have many different culture systems, country, family, work, neighborhood, families, friends. And, how are you meant to navigate all that? And some of the ADHD impacts of culture is treatment, finding the right treatment. Is there that in your culture? Education, getting the right education. We all know there's a lot of bad things out there that don't give the misinformation. Accepting of ourselves and who we are. The stigma behind ADHD. Health providers, can you get the right therapist, the right place, the right help? Getting help. That's a huge one that I find with culture, that really is a huge barrier. Willingness to discuss. Can you discuss it with everybody in your culture? Can you basically say, I have ADHD loud and proud? Or do we have to hide it? Do we have to hide it to our friends? Do we have to hide it to our family? Resources, what you can get online or things. And then the fear of labels. You're this, you're that, you're this, the fear of seeing ADHD is less than. And it's how do we navigate all of our different culture systems and be ourselves in all these things? And it is really hard. And I honestly think that some cultures obviously are a lot more aware and have a lot more education on ADHD, but you could still be in a household or a neighborhood or have friends you may be in a country that has the culture that is, a bit more educated on ADHD, but they might not be accepting of it. And it all comes down to everybody's experience with culture and ADHD is completely unique. Not one person with ADHD, as we've said before, is the same. And this is the same. It comes down to that. So how do we navigate all that? And I think it comes down to being aware of this. It's being aware of your cultures and trying to make your own conclusion on what you really believe. do you believe that you are, if you're in a culture that labels you this, and this, do you believe that? And it is hard when you're engrossed in that, but it's, and this thing about labels, I find that comes up a lot where I live, and labels are only labels if they're seen to be some sort of less. If someone says, you're dumb, that's a label because you're basically making out that they are less than the average person. But if you go, you've got ADHD, now this is what you need to do, how can we help you? That's not seen as less. That's just saying, yeah, you're not neurodivergent, that's okay. And I think it's how we use these things and how we see these things and what we believe in, which is the real big barrier when it comes to culture and ADHD. So they asked, what is your experience with ADHD cultures and what have you been exposed to? And I was like, oh, pardon me. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, where do you start? And I'm a big believer. I don't really like to put my own opinions out here because I have my own opinions. I have my own experiences with ADHD and cultures. But one thing I will mention is, so for the last 4 years, I've lived in Asia, and it's a lot different. My culture over here was a lot different to my culture in the UK, and obviously this is only country geographical, and the acceptance of ADHD in sometimes where I've seen here is a lot. I've been told to be quiet in scenarios. I've been told to not mention that I have ADHD. I've been told that ADHD is something that people will grow out of. I've been told to not get diagnosed in a country because I could be in trouble with the government. I've been told to shh. I've been told to calm down. I've been labeled as this, and this, and that's not true. And that's not what I believe. And it's hard when you're living in a culture that is so against what you are. And I think that my experience in the last kind of 4 or 5 years where I've lived abroad has really opened my eyes to see kind of where needs the right help, and everywhere needs it, and everybody needs the right help, and in order to be able to get what you need. But I think it always comes down to what are you being exposed to, and what do you believe as an individual? As an individual, what do you believe? And then looking around and think, what are your own conclusions on where you are and your own experience? Because no experience in the same culture is the same. We can generalize and say, people from this place do this, people from this place do this, but that's not true at all. Everyone's experience is totally different. And I think that I work with a lot of families in Malaysia, and it is very different to the UK, and it is very different to Australia, and it's very different to China, and it's very different to here, there, and everywhere. But that's my experience with it. Someone else may come here and have a completely different experience. And the thing how I dealt with when I was being told to be quiet and things like this, we don't need to explain where that was, but I was in a place in my workplace where I was very unhappy, and we got told to be quiet because we had to follow suit, and it didn't work for me. And I made my own conclusion of, what do I want to believe? Do you really want to believe that you need to be quiet and not be able to be yourself? No. So what did I do? I left that job. I walked out. I'd only just been promoted, and I left because that was not the right culture for me. And the place I was not the right culture, and my friends were great over there, and I had the great friends, and that was a culture I was really happy with. So even in my one life, my job wasn't the right culture, but my friends were. The country wasn't really for me, a neighborhood wasn't really for me, but my friends were. And it's that people can have, and it's just kind of, where do you fit in, and how does your ADHD, how is it seen there? And I'm now in a place where I'm treated as an equal. People I'm very open about my ADHD where I am right now, and I do this, but if I'm not in a place where I can't be myself, I just don't go there. I don't want to be with people that I can't be myself with. And that's a choice because that's all come from my own conclusion of, what do I believe? I believe this, and I don't want less than that. I don't want to be labeled as less than I am. because we're really cool people. So that's my own experience. And I really like this story. It's about an animal. So an animal came to a man, and the man said, "Oh my goodness, look at you. Look at you, you're too furry, way too furry." He said, "Look at your nails, they're too long." So he cut his nails off and he shaved him. And they said, "Oh, you look much better now. Go into the world." And what right did that man have? That animal was no longer itself because one man decided that that wasn't right. We all have qualities and characteristics that maybe misunderstood, maybe seen as ugly, maybe seen as useless, maybe seen as not right. However, these are the things that make us wonderful, unique, and amazing to the world. And no matter what your brain is, no matter where you're from, no matter where you live or who you are so unique. And, you know, you're on earth and you were put here. What makes you you is you. So they asked that question, what makes you you? Well, that's many things that make me you. My compassion, who I am, my crazy hair, I have very curly hair, my bright blonde hair that I love, my interests, I love to travel, my family, my friends that I choose to have in my life. What makes you you? If I didn't have all these things, if I'd not been to all these places, I wouldn't be me. No one has the right to shave the hair, cut the nails. No one has the right to tell you that you cannot be you and you shouldn't be you. And it's that thing of making your own conclusions. And what do you believe? Who are you? And are you in that environment that helps you be you, helps give you those, helps you grow with your ADHD challenges, helps you learn about your mind? And that's what I'm going to talk about with culture. You know, I try to keep it very I don't want to pinpoint anywhere or anyone or anything, because that's not who I am. I'm here to say the facts and then my own experience with that. I try and have a very middle ground. That's probably what makes me me. I'm very middle ground. I don't really try and have explicit bias opinions. I try to keep myself very in the center because I love everybody. And I think that what makes everybody unique and wonderful is great. I love learning from people. I love learning from culture. And it's a huge part of my life, culture and different cultures. And I think it's quite exciting. So that's what I try to do. So I hope that helps. After the break, we're going to talk about goals. Oh my goodness, this word goals. Goal! Like soccer. No, not a goal like soccer. But let's think about that after the break. And we're out. If you would like any more information on Indigo Hub or our Indigo support group, then please check out our website below or our link to our social media platforms, or email at indigohub.adhd@gmail.com. If you would like to offer any comments, feedback, get support, or if you're interested in the world hearing your story, then please reach out through any of our avenues. As said before, have a positive week. Check in again later. And we're out. Shh, the Indigo Diaries. We're back. And I realised that I went over, as always. I always look at my time and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got like 10 seconds left and then I'm about 3 minutes over. But anyway, we're back and we're going to talk about goals. And this is a huge one. And you might start thinking, oh my goodness, she's going to start talking now. I need to have 5-year goals, 3-year goals. No. Goals, what a word. I'm not a fan of that word. I don't think I ever have been, but we're going to go with it anyway. So what is a goal? A goal is a desired outcome, something that we desire in a place we want to get to. A place we want to get to, a person we want to get to, a place in our lives. But with this comes a lot from where we are. So our current reality to a goal is kind of like a swing, from one side to another side of something. We're on this side and we can see it, right? That's where we want to get to. But we don't really think about where we are. We always think about what's next, what's next, what's next. But what about what's here? Let alone as you're trying to reach that goal, unseen circumstances happen. COVID, that word. This and this, all these unseen circumstances you didn't expect, someone calls and cancels, or, I don't know, someone robs you, you lose your money, you get piled on with more work, you lose your job, all these unseen circumstances. And where you are, you're just looking at where you want to get to, and you don't think about all these things that could happen. And why do we want to reach goals? If we were staying in this one place, it would like being stuck and no movement forward. You're kind of just cruising on your life without any purpose or movement. And I can tell you, with someone with ADHD myself, that is not a place we like to be. I do not like being in a place where there's no movement or purpose. I cannot, especially movement. I mean, I'm moving my hands right now. I can't stop moving, but purpose is a big one for me. I have to be very passionate and have purpose. If I don't, I really, really struggle with me. It goes really against who I am. And, with goals, we're kind of taking ownership and leadership of our own lives, and it kind of controls our own destiny. But that's, all in all, and a goal is, there. But the process of, we know we want to get there, but then we've got all these things that come up that we don't know about, and then we feel like, oh, I can't be bothered, and all these barriers that come up. But we know we want to get there, and we know why we want to get there. And it's kind of, it's a real hard place to get to, especially when you've got all these, barriers in the way. And they asked us to name a goal that you have had success in, and then name a goal that you didn't have success in. What's the difference, and what did you have in place that was different? And so, for instance, a goal that I really wanted to do, I wanted to do a master's. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I was bored, impulsive, but I thought I wanted to do a master's. And, I wasn't successful. After 6 months, it got too much, and I packed it in, and it was too hard. I mean, I tried to say I didn't want, I tried to make it, I'll just put it on hold. I'll just defer. I deferred it for a year. And then 1 month later, I was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. This is not the right thing. And it was hard, and it had a real impact on me of like, wow, I failed, and I felt like a failure. And then they said, what's the difference of, what name a goal you did have success in? Well, this course that I'm doing now, I've had success. I've passed 4 courses now. I've got 1 more to go. And they said, what's the difference? And I think the difference was where I was in the world, 100%. My environment, my mindset, my perspective, my modalities. Oh my goodness. Masters were sat there reading. My course is sit there discussing. You do a little bit of reading and then you listen, but I can walk around, and I've got my environment in the right place. And I have experience with obviously with ADHD coaching and with ADHD. So my mission's in the right place. I've got a vision, I've got purpose, I've got passion. For my master's, I had nothing of that. I had no purpose, no passion. It was just something I did. And it's, seeing that difference is huge. And when I was celebrating last week, it was such a huge difference to be like, wow, I did this. A year ago when I was quitting my master's, I didn't think that I would ever do a course ever again after quitting that, because it was like, I just needed to find a different way and accept and gave my permission to do that. And that's what I did. And I reached a goal, and I've actually almost completed something, which was the first time ever since university, and about 8 years ago. And, in order to get there, we've got to put in steps, so for instance, my goal for this year was to become an ADHD life coach, but it's not just as easy as just stepping over, so it's swinging to the other side of a swing. It's how do we get there, and strategies and things like that help to get there. They help give the steps of action to get to the goal. However, I think that a lot of people think that strategies and tips are things to help quickly, but everyone's journey is very different. And I think that's a huge thing that is very is huge that I really started to learn. And I always thought that, like, when I go on websites and I see strategies and tips for this and this, they can help me and they can give me that starting point. But if I don't, it's like that thing of the flower of fitting into environments. If I try and push myself to do a strategy that doesn't fit with my life, doesn't fit with who I am, it's not going to work. And then I feel like a failure. And rather than fitting myself to fit something else, I should fit something else to fit myself. That does not make any sense. So it's a bit like fitting, pieces of jigsaw together. You've got yourself and the strategy, and it's not fitting. Rather than, craving yourself, push, but I need to fit in this, I need to do this. More of going, right, it's not going to work. How do I make it work to fit me and my life and where I am? Because life is a journey, not a destination. Yes, we want to get to that other side of the swing. That's where everyone wants to be. But in order to get there, we've got to go through that journey. And, thinking of a goal compared to where you are now is hard, and it's hard thinking of the whole process, because a lot of people, they actually don't think like that. They think black and white, here or now or never. We think now or never. And it's like, now we need to get over to that other swing, or never. And it is a process. Life is a journey. We're not a destination. And it's looking out for those moments and things like that. And I think, really looking at the successes and celebrations of what are things that you have accomplished, because everybody's accomplished goals. And it's kind of, remembering those things and, thinking about times that you had a place, you had a goal that was successful. Okay, so it was successful. What did you use? What did you have in place? What did you need in order to get to that goal? And then think about that, preempting, thinking about the barriers that could get in the way of a goal. So, right, I want to get here. So what do I need? What could get in the way of this? And it's being proactive rather than being reactive, of going, right, I want to get there, and not thinking about the process, thinking about the destination, I want to get there, but not thinking about the journey. And then going, what? Oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm not doing it. It's thinking about the journey, preempted all those things. What barriers, what steps do I need? Having those memories of successful times when times are hard, because those barriers are hard. And, and there's no right or wrong answer with this. And, goals is a huge word. Like, I don't like the word goals. When people say to me, what's your 5-year goal? I'm like, what? I hear the word 5 and then goal, and I'm like, what? I don't hear the word year. I hear 5 and then goal, and I think, well, like 5 goals, like, oh my goodness. And then like this whole, like, I just freeze, my brain just freezes, like fight, flight, fib, or freeze. I just freeze. I'm like, what? 5 goals. So I changed mine. I changed my word to ideas. So I have a lot of ideas, and my goals are my big ideas, where I want to get to. And then how I get there is, I call it LIs, my little ideas, my little steps of how to get there. And, when it came to studying, my goal, my idea was to become an ADHD life coach. In order to get there, I have many little ideas, little things that I need to do to get there. And I don't like the word study, because it just, oh no. So I call it game growth plan. Like, I'm having, like, it's like a game plan. I'm doing my game plan today. That's my study. And it's using whatever's right for you. There's no right or wrong answer in how to get goals, how to become, how to think, oh, I want this out of my life, and getting there. But we just need to remember that when you're on that swing on one side, going, right, this is where I am now. This is where I want to get to. But think about what's in the middle. And I think that that's what a lot of things that we don't talk about is the things that are in the middle, because they are the hard things that we have to plan. And that goes against everything. I like planning. That's just, it's one of my very strange things. I think I overcompensated younger because I wasn't very good at planning. I very just was like go with the flow. And then as I got older, I think I just like overcompensated. So now I'm very planny. I like planning, like organizing, not things, just for time. And being in that journey orientated kind of perspective, you're taking the driving seat in your own life rather than going on autopilot and going, right, I'll just go from here to here. You take it driving seat, right, this is what I want. How am I going to get there? So this week, I want you to think, what are you doing this week? What do you want out of this week? What do you want out of this week, this day? Even going down to hour, what do I want out of this hour? Okay. And then how am I going to get there? Rather than just what do you want in 5 years? Yeah, we want this, but how are we going to get there? Because the process and the journey is a lot more compact than the actual outcome. And I think it's really about thinking about the journey. So that's goals. And that's what we learn. And I really like that. I really like the idea of that. And I never really thought about it in that way. I like analogies, and I have my own, and I'll share that with you one day about my idea of journeys and goals. But we'll get there one day. So next week, it should be next week, we're going to talk about celebrations and next steps. What do we do to celebrate? And then next steps, what's coming next from this podcast? As I'm going on to my next journey of coaching, what's coming next? I don't really know yet. That's what today's for. I'm brainstorming today. What's next from this? What are we going to learn? How are we going to keep growing and learning about these things and growing our perspective? What's next? Is it series 3? Is it series 2? Who knows? And it's really exciting. I've got a big announcement to make next week about a next step for me that I would like to announce to you all. And I'm really excited. I really enjoy doing this podcast of, verbal processing. It really helps me because guess what? I'm a verbal processor. I need it to get to my goal of becoming an ADHD life coach. It's who I am. And I have 2 encouragements of the week this week. One is one of my favorite quotes of all time from Dr. Seuss. Why fit in when you were born to stand out? I mean, that's just an old classic. And then another one from an unknown source. Don't wait until you've reached your goal to be proud of yourself. Be proud of every step you take towards reaching that goal. And that's why I think that going through that process is really important. That journey is be proud firstly of who you are. Be proud of where you're going. And not all the time, we're not always going to be proud, but be proud of taking that first step to get to that goal, or, taking that first step. I know it's hard when we're in places or with people that don't always accept us, and it's hard, and everyone's experience is so unique. But the great thing about now, what's going on in the world, is the online communities. If you feel like you're in a place where you can't talk about it, reach out. Trust me, it made the world a difference to me. And yeah, why not? I hope that next week you come, learn, listen, and experience through the eyes of a coach in training. Because why not? What have we got to lose? I hope you have a great week. And I hope that you really celebrate the small things, and that every step you take, however small it might be to you, is probably really huge and should be celebrated. And we're out. Dear Diary, as the training process goes on, it makes me stop and wonder, could there be more for us? More light, more possibilities, and a place where we can truly be ourselves. I think this journey will be